Kia ora everyone. I'm talking across the interwebs a day ahead of the man Ben Patrick. Who is Ben Patrick today, brother? For those that don't know, the knees over toes guy.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a quick glimpse on Instagram at Knees Over Toes Guy, and you'll definitely see I'm an unorthodox guy, but I'm only unorthodox because I just chase where the truth leads. And unfortunately for knees, there's a lot of really helpful truths that are not common knowledge out there. So my life's pretty much dedicated to getting the actual truth about knees known. Knee pain, knee surgeries totally ruined my life. You know, I had dreams as a kid of dunking and a basketball and doing all sorts of things, and you wind up on an operating table at 18, nowhere near close to your dreams. How am I going to get there now after already not being close? Now I'm having knee surgeries. Years later, still can't get over the pain. And so it was actually the first guy I saw promoting knees over toes training was Keegan Smith, an Australian strength coach. And I dove into it and really devoted my life to that process of how to bulletproof the knees, and have come up with a lot of really cool stuff. And I can do those things I used to dream about. So it's pretty surreal now what I can do, but it's all built on really simple stuff with the same kind of progression that you would use to get good at a bench press, you know, but just applied to your knees. So that's pretty much my life in a nutshell. And now because of those results on myself, trying to help other people with it. So my whole life is structured now to getting that data across online so I can get it to maximum number of people.
Mate, you're going to be perking a few ears up. This podcast reaches a lot of hunting community, a lot of rugby players around. Even the fellow I live with was telling me about a little bit of, I don't know what it is, tissue that's catching in his knee post-surgery. He did that snowboarding. The amount of rugby players out there that need their whole knee strapped up before they get out there.
Yep.
What, in your mind, especially in that adolescent age, is it that we're doing wrong that means our knees are so vulnerable?
So in life, we're pretty much going to end up getting what we put our energy on. So we're kind of lying to ourselves right now when it comes to knees, because almost 700% more money is spent studying acceleration than deceleration. Okay. And it's the it's when we're talking about, you know, these non-contact knee injuries and knee pains, and it's happening as a result of our explosive movements, and we're not able to handle that force, but we're not putting the money into studying how to handle that force. So I like when I go on a podcast to at least give some useful things, right? So there was a study done on 13 to 15-year-old kids, and they broke them up into two groups. And one group ran forwards as fast as they could. I think it was about an 8-week study. The other group only ran backwards as fast as they could. At the end of the 8 weeks, the backwards group got significantly faster at running forwards than the forwards group did. And they got 4 times as much vertical jump increase than the forwards group. Does this mean that there's anything wrong with running forwards? Hell no, but it means there's a huge missing link, and we're not developing certain muscles. And if you're looking at those kind of results in 13 to 15-year-old kids, well, these are the exact same kind of results we're seeing for adult bodies who then apply strength to that concept, right? Because those 13 to 15-year-old bodies haven't had all the hypertrophy and strength work put in on them yet. So at their level, they're just running and working on acceleration. So put that in reverse and you get these miraculous results. Same now with strength training. My strength training system is almost a system of how to get strong in reverse. So we're now balancing out all the strength and hypertrophy we put into acceleration, and we're building that in deceleration. And then we're finding absolutely insane speed, vertical jump increases as a result, not to mention, of course, the reduction in injuries themselves.
Mate, you've just added a missing link to what I've been observing from you. That's fantastic. It was pretty funny when I found you guys. I had just listened to some guys talk about lunges and how a walking lunge is great, a reverse lunge is great, but be careful of the forward lunge because it's a lot of force and shear force going over the knee. Yet on your channel, all of a sudden I see these deep forward lunges. What is your opinion about that shear force that's going over the knee and getting really far forward?
So when it comes to training the knees, like I was just mentioning, getting strong in reverse, right? But then there's also a quality of fully bending your knee. And so to fully bend your knee, yeah, your knee is going to go over your toes, whether it's a squat or whether it's a lunge. So I like to do it from a stationary position, which tends to be called a split squat, right? But whether you call it an ass to grass lunge or an ass to grass split squat, however you describe it, yeah, the way I teach it is that you're going down until that front hamstring completely covers your calf. You're getting your knee as far as you can over your toes. Now, keep in mind, that's really built up in a regressed way. And when doctors themselves have looked at studies of over 164, different analyses of full bending type squats, not only is there no evidence that that's bad for your knees, it's actually conclusively very clear that graduated progression of full bend of your knee makes a more stable knee, a higher vertical jump. So the problem with that, keep in mind, I'm in basketball, right? In basketball, we jump, and we tend to learn to jump in a certain way. And if it's, say you're a right-handed player, well, it's natural you jump your highest off your left leg. Well, it's not natural to jump highest off one side. So compared to sports like soccer and rugby, we tend to get not only, knee problems themselves, but really imbalanced. So just asking a basketball player, especially a tall, skinny basketball player, to go down into a double-legged squat, it's most common that one side is going to feel a lot worse than the other side. So I'm not against full range of motion squats, but I don't do them because I prefer to do it one leg at a time. So with an ass to grass style split squat, which alone takes pretty good mobility to do what I'm talking about, because it requires the front hamstring to completely cover the calf without the back knee touching the floor. So a lot of people have to start with the front foot elevated, but I don't count that number. That doesn't mean shit to me until you're on flat ground, because as you lower that front foot down to flat ground, it's a lot more load on the front leg. So we're actually going for maximum force on the knee, if you think about it, but we're trying to build our way there. And we're building our way there one leg at a time. So every ounce of improvement you get there is going to be balanced. You don't hurt your knee only because it's weak. You hurt it because it's imbalanced. Otherwise, 5-year-old girls would all have torn ACLs. You hurt it because of the relative power you can put out and then a weak link in that chain. So if your knees right now is an arbitrary, if one was a 5 and one was a 7, moving those to a 7 and a 9 is not necessarily going to protect you. It might be better for performance than being at a 5 and a 7, but a 7 and a 9, you're still just as likely to blow out that 7 because of the imbalance, because the 9, you cut right, and now it puts more force into the 7 on your left, and you get hurt. So we're trying to take that. We want both of them to end up 8s, 9s, 10s. And unfortunately, a full squat, it doesn't provide that rebalancing effect. And in fact, it can actually make the problem worse, because now you have your 5 and a 7, and you do your squats, and then you start favoriting the 7 side without realizing it, because it's a double-legged squat. Before you know it, you're not just a 5 and a 7, you're a 6 and a 9. You now have an even bigger discrepancy than you had when you were a 5 and a 7. And now you're blowing out your knee, and you wonder why, because your legs are strong. But it doesn't matter how strong they are if they're imbalanced. So could someone use full squats? Absolutely. But when I've taken guys whose lives really depend on full squatting, and I'm talking not about Olympic weightlifters in this case, I'm actually talking about Team USA bobsledders. So for the Team USA, you have to do 200 kilos, 3 reps ass to grass pretty much to make the team. So I was having a few guys struggling with that number, and they wanted to do a program with me. So I had them go 6 straight weeks that they were doing this ass to grass style split squat. So they're jacking up their legs, but one side at a time. And then they were using, well, what about the hip, right? Because if you're looking at that ass to grass style split squat, the load's on the legs. You're getting all the load on the legs, but it's half the weight on the back, right? Mm-hmm. So you put that together with a seated good morning, and same thing, full range. So abs to bench, sit down on a bench. You should be able to put your body weight on your back and get your abs to it. So I got these guys to bar on front, full body weight, ass to grass split squats, and bar on back, full body weight, abs to bench, seated good mornings. Put that together, and they're all tossing around 200 kilos like it was nothing without any squats. And when they retested power snatch, power clean, all that stuff had gone up without even training it. So an ATG style split squat and a seated good morning, abs to bench together equal a squat. They are the full ranges that you would hit in a squat. but they're doing it not only balancing left leg to right leg, but balancing knee to hip. So the greater your seated good morning is, out of 1-to-1 ratio to your ATG split squat, the more chance of knee injury you have, because your hips are too powerful for your knee, and vice versa for your back health. So you could jack up your legs, have a really weak seated good morning, and still be throwing out your back, because now your legs are be able to put more force than your back can handle. So it's, as you can see, I'm a fan of the results that come from full squats, and I'm a fan of full squats, but the odds of someone being perfectly balanced between one leg to the other and between knee and hip are very low. And to the degree that you're imbalanced is to the degree that squats could make things worse. Because like I said, just how one leg to the other, if they're imbalanced, squats can make that imbalance even worse. Same with your knees to your back. The guy with a really strong deadlift but a weak squat is going to continue suffering and continue having knee problems, because when he even goes into that squat, his back can handle more load than his legs can. So he's going to have that more lean forward style of squat, relying more on his back, thus putting more load on the back, again, causing the imbalance now between knee and hip strength to be even in further discrepancy, causing even further chances of knee injury. So as much as I love full squats, to the degree that you're imbalanced, they can actually increase your chances of knee injury. So if you see the stuff I'm doing, I'm just a skinny pussy-ass basketball player, but I've got some pretty freakish athleticism, and that's without full squats. So perhaps for the rugby player, you could get balanced and then now reintroduce the squat while still maintaining your ass to grass split squat and abs to bench seated good morning, keeping these in precise ratio, 1-to-1 split squat seated good morning, 2-to-1 squat to split squat seated good morning, and now just make long-term gains and still get the compound mass building effects of the squat.
Mate, mind blown. As a
thank you,
imbalanced swimmer, right-footed soccer player, someone who's a lot better at their deadlift than their squat. When it comes to doing Olympic lifts, the moment it gets past the hips, things go to crap. You've just, blown my mind. Where does that balanced system, not just left and right, but up and down, where does all that sort of stem from?
Well, like I said, Keegan Smith was the first guy I saw doing it. I found out that Keegan was learning from Charles Poliquin. Charles Poliquin, rest in peace, was a legendary strength coach, one of the biggest assholes I ever met, but also also the biggest genius I've ever met. He once told my wife at a nutrition seminar, maybe this was good advice, maybe really he's my friend. He said, men are either horny or hungry. So if he doesn't want sex, make him a ham sandwich. And then she asked him another question, and he used a jerk off motion because he had already answered that question. I learned a lot from Charles. Charles was the biggest genius and helped so many people, yet because of how he treated other people, I think he had a lot of rage within him. I think he was asked so many bad questions so many times that he was just full of rage, and it's no way to live. But I want anyone listening to know that there's no way I would have come up with what I did without Keegan Smith and Charles Poliquin. And all I'm doing, I don't think exercise is something anyone owns. You know what I mean? So people ask me every day, man, I'm loving the system so much. I'd love to use it or shoot videos on it myself, but I don't want to be copying or whatever. I mean, there's no copying human movement. You know what I mean? And there's plenty out there for us all. And I don't think that even this monopolized concept that one person should try to become a billionaire, you know what I mean, off something that is only theirs. I don't know if that's really the best way to go about it. So I'm very happy with the way things are. And I've met billionaires, and so far I'm happier than any of those guys that I've met, because I get more joy out of helping other people, and how much more is it going to help someone else if they can use the data. So anything I'm saying, I try to be very open about where I got the inspiration for it, and also that, you know, this is just human movement. Go use it, make it your own, enhance it. You might come up with things that I didn't even come up with. You might come up with better applications that then come back and help me. So with Charles, though, he was obsessive about numbers as well. Now, unfortunately, for me, being a basketball guy, I could have cared less about the upper body. The upper body is about 15% of your speed and jumping. So that's in my program. I have a full body program. 15% of the volume is upper body. So I still have exact numbers for the upper body, 8 specific exercises, perfect form, But in terms of your total volume in a week, it's only 15% of your volume. And for me, it just wasn't so important. But I saw Charles' obsession with the numbers, and he was putting numbers to a underhand curl versus an overhand curl to see if you're brachialis and if you might be prone to elbow tendonitis, and your rotator cuff strength versus your bench press strength, and these kind of things. So I was like, I got to figure that out for the lower body, right? So I have it for calf raises and tibialis raises and hamstrings and quads, and so, you know, that was the inspiration. Is he showed me the power of having a number. And I remember I used to have like chronic shoulder pain, and I then got to the ratio that he recommended for the rotator cuff strength, and I've never had shoulder pain since. You know what I mean? So it really taught me a lot about not just training to go through motions, but to be training mathematically. Mathematically, you go out and you do a workout, and it's causing adaptation. Every time we go into the weight room, it's a responsibility. Every time we pick up load, we know that tissues and muscles can adapt. So where we put those stimulus becomes really important. And how do we know what to do? How do we know where to go? So the numbers are not accurate down to 1%, meaning the problems don't come because you're 1% off, but they come when you find out, holy shit, I'm like fucking 50% off on this and 20% off on that. You know what I mean? There's still the variables of the sport, but I 100% believe that a strength training system by numbers like this would at least cut down the injury rate, at least in half, you know, because more than half of injuries, 70% of injuries are non-contact. So if we cut out, you know, if we even, you know, reduce things a good amount, 2/3 less of those non-contact, you know, you'd practically cut half of injuries, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's, you know, it's interesting you say about that. Like even in rugby, and you see the same in NFL, you see the disasters when someone falls wrong, but the amount of times that someone like say cutting or even in a straight line sprint and they blow a hamstring or a calf or an Achilles, and you just go, man, what happened there? You know, the old
Yeah.
adage of, oh, the person's been shot.
Not to mention the day-to-day pain that they don't understand that most athletes are going through. Most of us are going through day-to-day pain, which is even worse than the rolled ankle. You know, worse than the rolled ankle in basketball is that you're waking up and going to every single practice through chronic knee pain. You know what I mean? And you're icing. I was icing 4 times a day and taking painkillers. You know what I mean? That's you don't see that. That doesn't show up in the injury report. Not to mention giving up on goals, giving up on certain goals of running faster or jumping higher because you feel like you experience pain to try to put out your most explosive effort, your highest jump, you know. If you could never feel pain when you jump, you would just keep jumping higher and higher and higher, and that's what we're seeing. But the number one limiter of jumping, for example, is knee pain. You know, it stops you in your tracks, and you're so concerned with the knee pain, you forget, you know, that you're giving up on really finding out what you're capable of as an athlete.
So, niching into the basketball, how much, you know, obviously you've built a career out of this, but how prolific is this limiting factor?
It's almost in basketball, like so many guys have knee pain that you get to a certain point where the train of thought is not how to get rid of my knee pain. It's that everyone has knee pain, and your attention is on how to mitigate it. So my knee ability program is a whole new way of thinking about it. The basketball players are going, holy fucking shit, I haven't played in 6 years without my knees hurting. They had given up that even playing without knee pain was possible, and all their efforts were on the latest foam roller and, you know, and like you get what I'm saying, and like how to treat the pain. And most basketball players have given up on the concept that you can be 100%, you know, knee pain free playing.
Mate, their mind shift must just be huge. Like I've seen a lot of your feedback. You do a great job of sharing it, but to all of a sudden have the capability to push beyond, you know, what you thought was possible, to be able to actually really focus on getting better instead of, you know, just being able to show up, must be absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, you know, personal messages from NBA guys who come in to train with me, and within 4 days, they're literally like, I can't believe it. I'm jumping. You know, I've been training with this organization for however many years, and already in 4 days, I feel better than I have in X amount of years, and I'm back doing dunks that I haven't been able to do in years. That, you know, they can't believe it. So this is stuff that really has to get into the basketball scene because it's just not there yet. And if it is there, it's there in such small amounts. It's still so, like I was saying, disproportionate to the focus on acceleration.
Mm-hmm. And you think that's possibly the root cause, that the overemphasis on like bang, you're there 5 meters away instantly?
Yeah, I mean, it's more like, all right, in basketball, if you want to jump higher, let's start with box jumps. Okay, well, now we're expressing our power, but we're not training our landing at all, and that's where the actual adaptation is. So, box jumps have shit evidence for improving basketball jumping, Vertimax machines. Yet meanwhile, depth jumps have more evidence to make you jump higher than Vertimax. So you're better off not buying any equipment to jump higher, using gravity, and actually causing real adaptation. But then the problem with the depth jump becomes that imbalance factor, right? So a depth jump is more proven than a Vertimax, but most guys are so imbalanced. So what I do is you jump up on 2 legs yourself. You don't use a box. You don't need any equipment. Imagine if you jumped as high as you could on 2 feet. Jump as high as you can in the air and try to rebound that on 1 leg. That's depth jump. If you add up the force, even a 1 meter or even a 1 meter jump that you land on 1 leg is the same force as a 2 meter jump landed on 2 legs, if you look into the forces and understand the math of the physics. So you don't even have to do something like a depth jump, which is most likely to cause pain on one particular knee or the other, whichever one is weakest. So you'll see on my page, I can jump off a house literally, and my knees are fine because they're balanced. And for me, like the full squat would provide an awesome exercise, but it's so likely that someone's going to actually be balanced enough to handle that force. So that would just be an example. Not to mention with most NBA players, you'll find that they've identified 1 leg as their landing leg, and they often have no idea, completely oblivious. And then I show them their game film, and they find out that every single dunk of the last season, they landed on their left leg and not their right. And so that leg that absorbs the landing first takes the majority of the blow, and they build up this bouncy landing leg, and then the other leg is shit, and then it creates all kinds of imbalances. So then I dunk with them, and I get them where they're now dunking with the other arm outstretching, landing with the other leg first, and causing those rebalancing effects. But putting real science-backed stimulus versus, again, a box jump is just expressing your force. Oh, and so we go from the box jump, now we go to our box squat. Same thing, avoiding the knees and just expressing force, but not training what's actually going to handle that force. But then if you watch any jump in slow motion, you see how much more it relies on the ankles, the knees, even the knee flexion, So again, it's just this disproportionate thing, and it's right there in basketball. Not to mention a couple just flat out mistakes. Real case of an NBA player. Coach, my knee hurts. I have tendonitis in my knee. I don't give a shit. Let's go. 300 pound lean back squats, no knees over toes to further that imbalance. You know what I mean? Not to mention then your back starts hurting and everything because your legs can't handle it's just, it's nasty. Bench press. You can't do your body weight bench. Don't go all the way down. Go down as far as you can. Now this guy ends up with a major rotator cuff injury. The trainer says, you had a pre-existing condition, would have happened anyways, takes no responsibility for it, and then tries to rehab him by telling him to do push-ups instead. These are guys getting paid millions of dollars. The thing is, once you're the top guy on the team, you can tell the strength coach, fuck you, and not do what they have to say. But until you're the top guy, you're the bitch, you have to do what they say, and they can look at you and see and hear that you're going through pain and not do anything about it. And that's the treatment group. That's not my fault. That's the, whatever they call the medical person. You see what I mean? So there's in addition to a system that's not observing the math and the physics involved, and it's the injury rate is double what it was 20 years ago, back when they didn't lift weights at all. So now on a given night, it's absolutely absurd how many players are injured. The stats don't lie. So the system of the strength training is messed up. Then you have the ego of the strength coach and the fact that the strength coach himself can't even touch the rim, yet he's telling other guys what to do, even though his body and his abilities in no way represent what the basketball player is going for. and there's no pressure on the strength coach for any kind of real results because the status quo is so low, you should be fired if your injury rate is high. But there's no one else to choose from because the whole freaking education system is putting 7 times as much money into acceleration, is contributing to the stats going the wrong way. And even if they started going the right way, it would cut into a medical industry that profits billions of dollars on our surgery. So we don't know why it's backwards. We don't know if it's purely out of ignorance or if there's also other things at play, because money is made off you being hurt. You don't make any money for you not being hurt. Knee replacements, $57,000 a pop now, and these things are just going through the roof. So you see what I'm saying? There's a lot more money to be made on a knee replacement. I had a client just last night tell me that his 73-year-old father no longer has to get double knee replacement because of my program. So my program's $49.50 a month. I sent him a $114,000 invoice. We'll see if he pays it. I don't know if he will. Okay. And then there was 2 more points I wanted to cover with the sport aspect. And then this next point is really just that, okay, so you're a basketball player. On average in a game, you run a mile over a 2-hour period. It's all, quick stuff, and you're doing all this running already. And then now the coaches, not the strength coach, but then the coach himself is pissed at you. So now you're just running as punishment. So giving guys running as punishment, you're punishing yourself as a coach. You're asking to get fired. You're a fucking idiot for giving more running, because scientifically, if you play your sport alone, you're already doing too much running if you want to actually be as athletic. You're already doing enough just by playing your sport. Any additional running, you're just going against the science. You got a rugby team, I would say put sleds at one end of the rugby field. Strap up every player backwards. No wiggling, straight, no cheating, straight feet. Put something based on the surface and the sled that you can get going into a rhythm, but not too fast, but not that it's so heavy that it's too slow. Maybe about 100 kilos on the sled. And now go to the other end. And if you get down there first, you're fine. Everyone else, you're fucked. You got to do it again until there's like one guy left. And now you're putting, trust me, it burns way more than sprinting, but you're actually putting science into your body to make it a better athlete, to make it more protected. So we've got to change the punishment system, because the punishment system, these fucking idiot coaches are punishing themselves by reducing the quality of their players, by causing their players injuries. And the coaches take no responsibility for the injury. The coaches, in fact, take an opposite approach of responsibility, and they go on public record in interviews saying, players are just getting softer these days. No, you are becoming more of a fucking liar, and you're taking no responsibility for your team. First and foremost, your team's health is your responsibility as the head coach. Secondary responsibility is the strength coach, who takes no responsibility for it. Only third is the treatment team, which you don't even need anyways. If the coach and the strength, the whole treatment team is a whole system of additional Band-Aids that don't even need to exist. Just have them there, for actual freak accidents. But you don't need treatment tables. You don't need foam rollers. You don't need any of that stuff if the coach and the strength coach are operating according to the actual evidence. And then the final one, again, something that the coach should know, because he's supposed to know his sport. So you mentioned that you plant with one side for your kick. 70% more chance of blowing out a knee ligament if you can't plant equally on each side. And very few can, even if they say they can. Very few on actual testing can plant as well on either side. So right there, 70% reduction in knee ligament tears just by building players who are balanced. But this obsession on short-term victory starting at age 9 that you're on the all-star team and you just don't correct the weakness. You have to be willing to regress things and address it at the level they are. But if you built players who could plant evenly, you would already wipe out tons of injuries. Then if you eliminate running as punishment and you only punish by strengthening backwards, boom, another massive reduction. And then make your weight room system actually according to physics and not according to where the money is spent on research. And boom, you change the whole freaking world and save people billions on knee surgeries.
Mate, that putting the sled at the end of the field, I think it could serve 2 purposes as well. There's a number of rugby fields around the country over here that are damp and and Sodden, and a few rolls over it with a sled or a roller would be quite good for the field. I think. I
Yep,
think
you
we'll have
get
some.
your conditioning, you get your mental toughness. Trust me, it is way tougher. When you do a sled until you if you really do it right, oh my God, it is way more mental toughness than any, running test. And the players, they feel better about it. I've done this with teams, and they feel so much better about it because they can feel that it's actually making them healthier and their pains are going away. And so they'll start to work harder for the coach by doing it this way. So it's going to come. It's going to happen.
Mate, and you don't need to sled either. I've seen plenty of videos of you out there getting guys pushing their car.
Yeah, there's so many ways to do it. Put your car in neutral, push that backwards.
Yeah. So
yep.
We've spoken about these sports that are quite explosive, that they do have a reasonably high intensity aerobic demand. I'm never sure of the energy system of these sports. For rugby, I found the greatest impact I ever had was doing a almost lactate tolerance on a bike. Sort of going 5.
And the sled just puts that on steroids. The sled, the lactate is fucking insane, and it's like a sled on steroids, and your foot is pressing each time. So you get rid of foot pains. Shin splints become obsolete. Shin splints become something that my athletes they have no reality on what that even is. What is shin pain? What is foot pain? They don't know how many people are suffering from foot pain, Achilles pain, shin splints, that lower knee tendonitis. So yeah, you do it with a sled, and it's just absolutely incredible. But it's, again, people think of sled in terms of like a short bout of energy. And I'm talking about doing it until your legs are so jello, you know what I mean? Until your lungs are about to burst out of your chest. So I'm talking about sled in a whole different way, where you go far beyond, muscular burnout, and you're really operating purely on your soul, continuing to move it. Like, it's, until guys get there and they do it with me, they don't understand how good we get at sleds. So ask Keegan Smith when he came to my gym how fucking good we are at sleds, meaning start moving and see what happens a couple minutes later, and you see guys dropping like flies. Like, we're talking about serious adaptation going on by doing this consistently over time. So my thing would be, my rugby team is going to be able to beat any other team in the league at dragging a sled backwards from one end of the field to the other. While the other team is dropping like flies, we're going to be picking up speed, getting more aggressive, not to mention your hormones go through the fucking roof. Your different anabolic and testosterone hormones, growth hormone elevates up to 9 times normal levels. So you get insane repair, unbelievable strengthening from the ground up. Based on pushing forward or backwards, you can completely rebalance your body while actually getting stronger, getting the endurance you want. And because the sled doesn't make you bigger, you pack it. The sled is this secret exercise for explosiveness, that it doesn't appear like it. But when you go, say you go 2 minutes nonstop on a sled, you think energy system wise, you think that has nothing to do with explosiveness. But what happens, the sled has no eccentric volume, so you don't grow. You can't hypertrophy from the sled. You can get a pump temporarily. You don't actually hypertrophy. You get dense as fuck. And when you get stronger pound for pound within the same frame, you get more explosive. So anyone listening to this, you want to know who at ATG has the gym record for 2 minutes sled drill, which you would think is endurance, right? 2 minutes endurance. The gym record. Look up on Instagram a guy with 80,000 followers at BasketBarth, and you're going to see arguably the highest jumping human being on earth right now. And he has the gym record for a 2 minute sled drill. What that tells you is that he's stronger pound for pound. And as a result, he can keep pushing that sled farther over a 2 minute period. But if you watch what he does, it is the quickest of efforts. He's a dunker. He's not even a basketball player. He doesn't even play basketball. So for him, the jump, it's more like being a high jumper or something. So, his sport lasts a few seconds, 3 seconds of the approach and the jump. So it's unbelievable what happens if you really get sled work as part of your paradigm for your team, building your mental toughness, your cardio, making yourself jump higher and run faster in a single exercise. Well, it's the most elemental thing to repair your body, because the blood flow is insane. It's very hard to get blood flow to the tendons. The better you get at that, then the easier it gets to do all your exercises. But it's not something that happens by going through the motion. I mean, it's like, really, you got to put intent on it. You got to test yourself. You got to make it your life's mission to be better than your competitor on a sled for 2 minutes straight.
You just brought up a term that I heard from Coach Summer with gymnastic strength, and that was about getting blood flow to the tendons to help them grow and help them strengthen. His is all about I think it's about 80 calf raises, and it's agony, but man, it helps out with running and I don't know, speed endurance. What's the same with you in the front of the calf and in the knee?
Yes, I mean, with the tendon, you're just looking at, you can go to the gym, grab a dumbbell, start pumping out curls, right? And you can get a pump. It's much easier to get blood to a muscle than it is to a tendon. Tendons don't get as much blood. So that's why the whole thing of, oh, you got tendonitis, rest 6 weeks, ice, this, that. There's no proof behind that. And in fact, the only proof shows that makes things worse, because now the tendon gets even weaker, because it's so tough to get the blood flow there. So the trick is getting that thing where it's totally pain-free and pumping it and bathing that tendon in blood so it can heal. So that's really the trick of it, is that treating a tendon is not the same as treating a muscle. Treating a muscle, you could just strength train it, recover. So that the exercises I do in my system, I like to do once a week. They have eccentric load. You train it once a week. You try to get stronger on real simple progressive overload stuff, but the sled we use before every single session.
Nice. Mate, so how do you think news advertise, like, it fits really obviously into this team sport paradigm? How do you think it fits from, say, well, you've already mentioned bobsled, but the shot put to the marathon or the ultra marathon?
So I've trained both in those, and shot put, you actually have a lot of knees over toes pressure. And again, you're just trying to build, at the end of the day, what you're doing is just building a better system of strength, right? So the shot putter needs to get really strong as fuck. And if I can build that for him in the most balanced manner possible, so that he doesn't have aches and pains, so that he can express his full power, so that he can get the hip and the upper body power he wants and have the ankles and knees to fire it out on. And then same for the runner. So the training is not going to vary too much based on the person. You have a few factors. Number one, I could train a marathon runner and a shot putter the same way, and they could both get great results, even though they would think they would need some customized program. First off, the guy with the genetics to be a marathon runner looks totally different than the guy with the genetics to be a shot putter. Then the action they're doing then causes its own adaptation of what you're going to do with it. So you could train for maximum vertical jump and maximum marathon. You could do the same strength program, but then what you go out and do in your sport is going to take it from there. And then the diet on top of that. So then the shot putter who's going to be eating a diet. So two people could do my same program. One could eat 1,000 calories a day, be borderline unhealthy, but get shredded as fuck and be jumping out of the fucking gym. And another could eat 6,000 calories a day and get more athletic while gaining a ton of mass. You see what I mean? So then the diet plays a big role into it. So your genetics and your diet, and then what you do out in your sport, are going to have a ton to do with it. The marathon runner doing all those miles is just going to end up with a different physiological effect. But either case, the goal is to build from the ground up. And then the last little point is that in my system, I use 2 different numbers. I use 20 different exercises, 8 lower, 8 upper, 4 back, 20 different exercises. All 20 have 2 different numbers. One is a standard that I believe you should have just for being human, right? Like, I don't believe anyone shouldn't be able to do a chin-up. You see what I mean? Like, there's certain things you should just be able to do because you're human. So for your big NFL lineman who's 300 plus pounds, if he could just do the standards for his ankles and his knees, that already puts him way past the other linemen he's facing. Most of the San Francisco 49ers linemen, they made it to the Super Bowl this year, were doing knee ability. And they're sending me videos of doing things that are super unimpressive for a guy who weighs 60 kilos, but weighing 150 kilos, it's fucking impressive. You see what I mean? It's unrealistic that they will get to the world-class standards that you see these Ido Portal dudes doing. You see what I mean? It's unrealistic. But for the Ido Portal dude, if you're 5'7" and you want to dunk a basketball, the standard is not going to be enough. You're going to have to get to the world-class number. But so for basketball players, I get them only to world-class in the 8 lower body movements, not in the back and the upper. Those just at standard, right? They need to be able to do 10 full-range chin-ups and many other things. Just to the standard is enough. But then for for the football player who now is having to hold a ball and is getting beaten, he needs also world-class in the upper body. So he would want world-class, for the guy who runs and holds the ball, so he has to be fast and strong, he would want world-class across the board. So world-class upper for him would mean half his body weight, 5 full range of motion chin-ups. But he would build that from the ground up. So he'd want world-class ankles, world-class knees, world-class hips, world-class shoulders and elbows. So there's 2 numbers, and I help people navigate what's realistic. And if you know you need to be a fat fuck for your sport, it's not realistic to get to the world-class numbers, but it is realistic. Standards relative to your body weight as a big old dude is pretty amazing. But the standards for a little dude might only be enough to really keep them healthy. They might have to get world-class to keep up, you know what I mean, to have that insane world-class explosiveness.
Mate, you break it down so simply and then blow it out into the nuance, and it's bloody awesome to hear and have this conversation. Mate, you said about the accountability within the team, especially when it comes to the head coach and the strength and conditioning coach. Working something at scale, how do you then create this individual approach and for you and your team to have responsibility for a large number of people?
Yeah, so if I was a strength coach, I would just use the standards and the world-class numbers, and I would break it up by position within the team, right? So if it's a basketball team, your point guards would have certain numbers they're going for, but then your centers who are 7 feet tall, right? For them, they would have different numbers that would make, anyone 7 feet tall who just gets to the 20 standards, which is totally achievable by just doing them, is going to be a fucking freak of nature because at that height, right? So same with any sport. So my whole thing is I just try to do, as you can see, I'm pretty obsessive with what I'm doing, but I really just stay in this little box, and then it's going to take other people to go out and make booms in their own area, right? So I have no idea how a rugby game works. I've watched it enough in slow motion to see what qualities are involved, and then it's just like, yeah, it's the same fucking qualities as these other sports. You just, again, you have the nature of the sport, the body mass, the genetics, is going to dictate things in terms of size and things like that. In terms of, again, soccer, hell no, I'm not working them towards world-class upper body standards, but rugby, hell yeah, I am, right? So the nature of it, but it doesn't mean that one athlete should work out their ankle and the other athlete shouldn't, you know what I mean? So these 20 movements, I think, are just essential human movements to stay really healthy and to maximize athleticism, but then how much mass you put in different areas. So you not only have the goal, but then you have the muscle method, which means what I do is I'm only working up to one best set. So you're performing sets, you're gradually working up in weight to your best effort on your exercises, doing maybe 3 exercises per session spread out across your schedule. Mm-hmm. But then if you want more mass in that area, once you get to that top set, you're then going to stay there and perform 4 more sets. So even once you get up to that, whether you perform 1 set or 5 sets, it's going to have a totally different effect on the muscle mass involved. Mm-hmm. So even that plays a huge role depending on where, which people on the team need more mass or not. So I would still try to get it super systematized in terms of everyone working the 20 exercises, but then through trial and error, learn which positions and which athletes, because it could just as easily be, well, he's in a bigger position, but he's smaller and needs to gain mass, or he's in that bigger position, but we need him to cut down, or he's in that position, but his upper body's weaker, so he'll use the muscle method on the upper body to catch it up, or he'll use the muscle method on his calves to catch them up. So then it's just plugging in based on that. Hopefully that makes sense. You're adjusting the volume and the goal, right? So you have the system, the 20, but then you have the goal. How strong are we trying to get, and how much volume are we using?
So do you think someone should, they're sort of optimizing this to integrate into the general physical preparedness, or do you think it's something that can create a real foundation for every gym-based workout, or?
I mean, this is just how I believe in training. You know what I mean? So my goal in a podcast is not to insult any other method of training, and it's hard to say what I'm saying without insulting some other things. So I apologize if I insult any other systems, but my intention is only to give my actual honest thought. So my actual honest thought is that I would just use these 20 exercises no matter what the sport is. And I trained an American football team 2 years ago because they were my hometown high school team. So these are kids ages 15 to 19 years old. At the end of 2 seasons, They had more Division I scholarships per player than any other football team in the United States. We have tens of thousands of football teams, godly amounts of money put into these different teams all over the country in much bigger cities than mine. Per player, it was almost like you're in my system, you're going D1, which is the highest level scholarship. So these guys did my exercises and they bought into it and they got really strong at these things. And we didn't have to do the other things. We didn't have to do the Olympic lifting and the squatting and benching and deadlifting that other teams were doing. And the success left a clue. And these guys got jacked out of their minds because, again, it's putting the same impulses on your body. Whether you load if you look at a seated good morning and you go abs to bench, and if you understand physics, your core is supporting by going all the way down versus only maybe 45 degree of a squat. There's as much load as twice that weight in a squat. So I just think it's a better system of doing it. Your body has no idea the difference. It only knows that you're putting it in a more balanced way. And then when you're not in pain, you're able to train harder. And then you're able to play harder because you don't have the pain and you have more muscle in the right areas in the right balanced manner. So you can cut harder, run harder, and then you adapt even more to get more athletic. And we had fuck tons of sled work with these guys. So it was my sled approach plus these 20 exercises. And it factually got better results than any other football strength coaching system in America. But no one gave a shit outside of that crew. You know why? Because I'm an 80-kilo basketball player. So on social media, it doesn't matter. You know, social media, it's looking for sexy, and it's looking for the average IQ is too low to be able to jump from one area to another. So it's this guy, no matter how he got there, no matter what he's feeling internally, he's jacked. I want to be jacked. That's really the only way I can go. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So even for me, intentionally, I have to intentionally stay at 80 kilos. That's not easy to do, but that's because at my height, it makes me so tough to stay with on a basketball court. And it's just the nature of the game in basketball, especially with modern officiating. I can shoot far as hell, and if you touch me, it's practically a foul. So it's just like I'm just slippery as hell and trying to get a body built more like a cross between a 400-meter sprinter and a high jumper. You see what I mean? Mm. That's like for my genetic type and my position in basketball and my style of play and shooting from very far out. So now if you come out, now I'm so quick and light on my feet and I can run forever, and then I'm going by you. So, but again, you get my point, is that even though I was making, so I dropped that team because it just wasn't, it's like I would work such good results and then they would bring in the next crop of recruits, and now I'm having to start over from ground zero, trying to get their respect and show them what the fuck is up. You see what I mean? Mm. And they're expecting one of these, you know, fat powerlifting coaches, you know what I mean? And they're expecting to do bench, squat, deadlift. And now it's like, so my last year I did that team was the year before last. They went undefeated. And as I said, had more Division I scholarships per player than any other team in America. I shouldn't have to start back over with piece of shit kids with no respect. You see what I mean? So, yeah. So guess what? I passed them off to someone who believed enough in the ATG system, but still insisted on the bench, squat, deadlift. Guess what? This year, they lost games and they had a lot of injuries. And the year before, it was like there was this angel over the team. How is no one hurt? How is this happening? And now they're back to the injuries. And guess what? Head coach of the team is wishing they were back training with me. You know what I mean? But it's like, that's the nature of the game we're at. And as a strength coach, there's a direct ratio how successful you are in today's world with how good your marketing is. And it is what it is. I have a duty to get this technology out there, and I can't sacrifice my career to keep proving myself to a new crop of recruits each year. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate, but I know from experience that I have worked. You know, I didn't know how it would work until I did it with those guys, until I was getting guys who were 300 pounds and could dunk a basketball. And college coaches would walk in and shit their pants because these guys were as much as 300 pounds, damn near doing the splits, dunking basketballs, running fast. You see what I'm saying? Mm. It was unbelievable what could have been built if I would have lived, a different life and gone that route myself and bulked up and proved myself in that sport. But baseball players don't want to train with a basketball coach. Tennis players don't want to train with a basketball. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting and unfortunate learning process that people have such fixed ideas, you know what I mean, that to be a good tennis strength coach, you have to be a good tennis player, thereby meaning you probably don't really understand strength training. You're a shitty coach, but you're good at marketing the tennis. You know what I mean? It's a really messed up system. I almost find there's an inverse relationship these days between the success of a strength coach on social media and actually like how good of a strength coach they are. It's brutal.
Mate, and you brought up the word system there. That was immediately what I was thinking when you talk about the football guys. You know, there's so much around the combine, and I just sort of wonder if, you know, despite the fact that these people aren't training the test, their expression of athleticism means that when it comes to the test, they perform well. Because, like you said, they've established this gigantic foundation of athleticism that it doesn't matter what you throw at them, and then from us in New Zealand, where it comes to rugby, you know, we just play rugby a lot of the time, and then the sciences come later, and it's going in massive waves of you know, fad almost of what strength and conditioning training should look like for rugby, because they keep coming back to, well, playing rugby tends to work pretty well. What are we wanting out of the gym room? You know, do we care about the numbers, or do we care about the athleticism? It's a tough one. So, yeah, for us over here watching, you know, the combine, going, wow, that's amazing numbers, but what are they like on the football field?
Yeah, I think all they have to do really is just study the film of the player. I think it's kind of ridiculous doing all these tests. I mean, it's a joke. Not to mention that the 40-yard dash in the NFL is rigged. Like it's actually not an accurate test. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they don't use lasers on the start of the test. You can look this up. It's public record. They use lasers on the finish. So you get a good finish time, but your start time on average is 0.22 seconds slower than what it actually is. People do this with their computers, and they look at these NFL combine times. They go, wait a second. That's a lie. That's not how fast he ran. And that's because they have 6 guys who hand time the start. It does a laser finish. Then they compare numbers and pick it. In 2012 was the only year they used lasers on the start. They also did the hand timing to compare results. The starts, when they're laser time, so the actual time it takes them to run 40 yards, on average, 0.22 seconds slower. So not one person ran an impressive time that year. So they threw out the results because they thought it would hurt the confidence of the players. And they've just kept using their hand timing system. So even their 40-yard dash system is built on lies, not to mention the tests don't accurately represent how, like, it's a joke, man. It's a freaking joke. Just watch the guy's film. Like, do you want the guy on your team or not? These tests don't determine enough. I mean, watch the guy on film. Not to mention, like, they're not even timing the 40-yard dash with the pads on and a helmet. Like, how insane is that? That you're not even wearing what you're gonna wear, and then guys spend their whole off season trying to master the test, even though if you're the very guys they want to run fast are the ones who never start in that low stance anyways. And that stance alone has a lot to do with how good your time is going to be. So you could have these guys great at top end speed, but they aren't that good at that low start, which of course they should be, but I'm just saying a lot of them aren't. And now it messes up, you know, their time. Meaning the guys who run fast, they start from a standing position, they get a little momentum going, and then they take off. So if anything, just set up lasers, give them as much room as they want to start, and just test their top end speed if you did want to test it. And then maybe the guys on the line, maybe test them on a freaking 5-meter laser time sprint or something. You know what I mean? So it's just it hurts how bad the NFL Combine is in terms of what I would do in terms of predicting performance.
Yeah, and that's what's also fascinating from rugby. Like, there's a diverse array of body sizes, skill sets, and priorities when it comes to rugby union. And then you look at
different tests for different players.
Absolutely. Then you look at the NFL and you look at a lineman versus a wide receiver, and you're like, they're not the same.
I know. And then if you don't have a lot of money, you have some coach there picking his nose while he times kids. And have you ever tried just having a bunch of people time the same person? The variance is bigger than you can even create with training. It's ridiculous. So then a kid's like, you know, the trainer's like, wow, we just cut his time this much. You don't know that. You're not even close to knowing that because you're hand timing him. You have no idea. It's absurd. So if you are going to do timing, it has to be lasers on the start. and lasers on the finish if you're even going to time. Otherwise, it's just a guess.
Yeah, and that's what cracks me up when it comes to, like, you know, your system of like pulling a sled, and then I think about club rugby, and it's just like, you know, get on the line, like you say, the punishment is more running, and then you got, you know, your poor front row having to bring up the rear, and, you know, just like, what are we doing? Do we want this guy to win us a scrum, or do we want this guy to lose 20 kgs and be useless?
Exactly. So the punishment is actually harming. See,
Yeah.
at least basketball testing is the best, because number one, they don't care about it in basketball. Like, they don't care about your speed. They don't care about your vertical jump. It's not like football where it's like something that players wear as a badge of honor. And you got a 10-foot rim, and the rim is 10 foot, and it's 10 foot. None of them are 9 foot. None of them are 11 foot. They're 10 foot. Some are off an inch or two. So you have right there in your film, you can see how good of an athlete is by just watching his film. So in basketball, it's way more film-based and just watching. And a guy can do good or bad at the combine. It doesn't influence how they're drafted. Whereas in football, oh my God, it's like such a big deal to how they're drafted. And then they continue to be surprised when these guys come out of nowhere or whatever, you know what I mean? Or when some guy with great scores then isn't a great player. My football rugby test would be the, 100 kilos on the sled, backwards, ready, set, go. All right, let's see who goes down. You know what I mean? It's like, we got your film. We can see how good you are. Now let's see how much balls you have and put them together. Skill plus balls equals, rugby.
No, it does. The players with heart and commitment always the best. And especially in my position of loose forward, the guys that are at the top of the game, like, just watch some Richie McCaw film. It's bloody scary.
Yep. Yeah, because the sled test can do two things. One, it can quickly weed out those who simply are not physically, they're just poor athletes, right? And it's awesome because they get to train to be better athletes. But it also will show a guy who's mentally weak. So any kind of weakness, it's not going to show up at first, but by the end of that 100 meters or so, it's going to show up, and it's going to show you who's weak in some way or another, whether it's mental weakness or physical weakness. So it's pretty cool.
Mate, you brought up, the systems against us there, and it often is hacking the system that brings out results. You mentioned that you had surgeries, you're on painkillers. What would you tell 18-year-old Ben Patrick?
I mean, fortunately, I just never stopped. I never gave up. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I was painting walls for 2 or 3 years, thinking I was still going to be a basketball player, even though no colleges wanted me, even before my knee surgery. So I was, being stubborn is one of the best things you can do, and just never giving up, because you never know what's right around the corner, right? And then, I would have. So it's been 8 years of up and down learning, right? So I would have just started myself from the beginning, right? And I just would have gotten the best at backwards sled. Then I would have started introducing the reverse step ups, the full bend, split squats. And now the final little touch is what you see me doing, this almost like a sissy squat. I call it a KOT squat, knees over toes squat, because what happens if you clench your glutes and you're not allowed to unlock your glutes and you squat? It's just pure knees over toes. And I figured out a scalable way so anyone can get good at that. I've had 80-year-olds working on that. That's one of those things that's like, oh, wow, Tom Platz can do that. And he's got the knees of a god, and he's in his 60s still squatting 3 plates each side with incredible mobility, while all of his older peers are having knee replacements. He could do that, but if you can't do that, don't do that. No, if you can't do that, you better progress to that. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on massive gains. So it's one of those things that you see these freaky athletes who can land in those positions. I have a tape of Michael Jordan landing in that position, pops up totally fine. Same thing for Klay Thompson, ACL, could totally change the rest of his career. It's a list of basketball players all blowing out their ACLs. And then you see Michael Jordan, same position, pops up totally fine. So if you don't have it naturally, you sure as heck better build it, because sports isn't always in that reverse step up split squat. Like, you think you've got the full range covered with those two, but you need one more. There's that one more there, and it's that KOT squat, and it hits those outer ranges, and it really digs in and gives you a whole new level of leg development. So I would have built myself in that regard, and it's just unbelievable how freaky of an athlete you can become when you build those 4 things: the reverse sledding, the reverse step up, the full bend split squat, the Astagras split squat, and the KOT squat.
Beautiful, man. So I think you've probably teased everyone, and I think that
Hopefully.
all they really need to do is start following on Instagram, and then get involved with either you directly, or if they're over this side of the world, maybe going through real movement, and getting access to what you've got. Where do people find you? And it's pretty easy. We said it at the start.
Yeah. Knees over toes guy on Instagram is best. I'm one of those natural cavemen who thinks that social media is for complete pussies. So I started that account not too long ago. I've only been on Instagram a couple of years, and really not something I wanted to do. You know what I mean? But it was realizing that the guys winning in today's market in strength training are actually those who care so little about being competent strength trainers that they're willing to devote all their time into knowing the social media trends and dance moves and whatever. So it's unfortunate that this is not case for case. This is not an absolute, but there's a general, if you statistically weighed the success of a trainer on social media and how much time they put into being competent as a strength coach, it's an inverse ratio. So are you putting your time into being competent as a strength? Some of the best strength coaches I know, these poor bastards have less than 1,000 followers. You know what I mean? Because they've been putting all that time into being the best strength coaches they can possibly be. So it really took me a while to figure out, damn, it's not okay for me to let this beautiful ability to help be overshadowed by people who don't care enough to help others and just know how to get views. So I did start turning my attention to how do I grow on social media. But I've only done that with one channel because I'm like, look, I've got enough time to figure out how do I figure out Instagram, right? And I'm sure over time I'll do the next thing, and YouTube and these kind of things. But so for right now, if you want to reach me, Instagram, I'll answer you under 24 hours. Anything else, you probably won't hear back.
Yeah, and you said you are on YouTube, your videos though, right?
Not really. Like I have like a couple of YouTube videos, make a Twitter post here, and you know what I mean? It's almost like, oh, let me try to get this stuff. And then I'm just, the point is that my Instagram is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And I believe in doing one thing that can be really consistent that people can count on me for, and doing that well, and then gradually building to doing the next thing well rather than a bunch. So it's pretty cool that for a guy, I'm at 99,000 Instagram followers, about to hit 100,000 followers, and you'll actually hear back under 24 hours. So that's pretty cool because most channels that big won't do that. So you see the quality is going to be very high there in terms of getting back to you. But I wouldn't try to reach out to me any other way because it's not going to be a well-oiled machine yet. My business, my online coaching is a freaking well-oiled machine that we now have coaches around the clock 24/7 coaching your form, which no one even takes the time to watch your videos for that low of a price. So those are my Instagram and my actual business, well-oiled machines that, you can reach out via Instagram and chat.
So that's it with ATG, where you're really offering that coaching as a system, and as the people that you've got on board, like you said, as an online forum, you guys are watching videos. Like that's the level of detail that you're getting out of ATG.
Yeah, so that's where you're going to be able to not only see all my articles, all my videos and stuff like that, but then be on an app where you have your weekly schedule, where you see exactly how to do the exercises. Then you send in your form. I mentioned you build up to this top set. Then you send in your top set on each key exercise every session. So then we coach your form. So it's just like if we were in person monitoring your progress.
No, that's fantastic, man.
Very, very simple, but very simple, but very like close attention to detail, close personal attention. On average, we answer under 2 hours, like within at any time of day, coaching your form already, like under 2 hours average response time. We're trying to get that down to where like you literally like would hear back almost instantaneously.
That'd be amazing, mate. I always get people to leave me with something that's always shows up in their life, and it doesn't do them wrong, no matter what they're doing. When they're in a state of flow, there's sort of a thing that comes along. It can be a quote, or just a way you live your life by, or a thought that you'd like to share with people.
I think just like when in doubt, just be more grateful for things. You don't want to train legs, be grateful you have them. Seriously. I mean, there's people out there who would just fucking kill to have legs. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine how badly that guy with one leg or no legs would fucking punch you in the face if he heard you bitching about, about your sets and reps on, you know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
Like, I just think if you totally take that approach to life in general, oh, something's going on with your wife. Man, should you be grateful that you have a wife? You know what I mean? Something's going on with your house. Man, should you be grateful you have a house? You can't figure out your macros. Man, you should be grateful you have food to eat. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you take that approach, you really start to get like just so happy. Like every day, I just look forward to every day and every aspect of every day because I don't take any of it for granted. You know what I mean? So that would definitely be my best advice for anyone. And I think then when you have that kind of an outlook, I don't know, things just start to go your way more. You know what I mean? You start to get luckier when you start just putting, you know, more positive energy on things because you're grateful for it. You know, I suppose if you're grateful for something, then you're putting that thankful energy on it and you're more likely to get more of that. But then when you're putting a disproving, you know, energy, a complaining energy, you're probably going to get more to complain about. So that's what I would say.
Thanks so much, Ben. I'll let you get on with the rest of the day there in LA. Not that you can go far, but this has been bloody awesome, and I've been a big fan for a couple of years, and it's great to have a conversation with you, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Keep me posted, and when we hop off, send me your email. Anyone who does a podcast with me, I set them up for life free membership on my system.
Oh, legend. Cheers, brother.
Yep. All right.
Huge.